Hi everybody. Today I decided to do a video to share my experience in the UK. As many of you will already know, I've been in the UK for the last 35 years, and I actually came into England as a teenager and full of hope, aspirations and everything. And in this video I'm going to share some of the hardships, some of the financial challenges, some of the coping mechanisms, and how I was able to overcome loneliness over time. And for new migrants in this country, if you're not able to navigate around your finances and some of the tips that I'm going to share, it can really make a difference with whether you actually make it into this country or whether you actually end up getting depressed or whether you end up being stuck in this country for a very long time without ever returning, if your hope was to ever return back to your homeland or back to your native land. I know for many people that come into this country, some come to work for a few years, a few months, and then they return to be with their families and loved ones. But for many, that reality never actually comes to pass because they come unprepared and they face many challenges, which I'm going to share, especially financially, especially lack of planning. All these things can really have an impact into how somebody can be able to cope or survive within this country. So stay tuned if you're already in the UK, planning to come to the UK, or even migrate to any other Western country, because most of the way the systems work are almost the same for everybody. And like I said earlier, for me, my experience, I was a lot younger, I was very immature, and I spent many early years just really getting excited about being in England, about being in London, about the many opportunities, and just being able to be and getting on that bus and taking pictures, sending them home. And obviously, I was homesick and I didn't understand most of the financial things that I'm going to talk about. So I then embarked on the working journey. I was always doing minimum wage jobs. And at that particular time when I came to this country, I didn't even understand about, the income tax, the national insurance, how that even works. I just would go to a job, and let's just give an example. I would be earning at the time maybe £6-7 an hour. I didn't even know how much of that money would be taken by the tax man and how much I would be left with. And I just sort of randomly, just honestly, I was just an accident happening as I went along. So that stole many years from me. But what I would advise to anyone who's coming here with a plan is just have a good understanding of how the wage system in England works. And for many of you, if you go into AI and ask, put your salary scale online and find out how much will you be taking home after tax, and factor in things like council tax for your home, and obviously after the NI and all the other deductions, and the house you're going to live in, and the rent, the bills and the winter bills. All those things can go up and increase your outgoings. And we're also looking at your car insurances, if you're going to be having running car, if you're going to be having childcare issues. Childcare issues in this country can range from £500 to £800 a month. So if you're earning something like £2,000, and if you're single in this country, I can assure you, if you've got most of these bills, even minus childcare, you'll still be left with very little. And I haven't even added the black tax. And this is something that I had to do. And personally, for me, I felt like I needed to do it as part of connecting with my siblings, because all my siblings were back home. I miss them terribly. And I just connected with them through gifts, through financial, monies that I send them without even thinking. And sometimes there would be a huge issue, or somebody's ill, or there's a funeral, and then I would send a bit more money. And then in the end, I found myself in debt and not having enough money, and things were just haphazardly, going wrong for me. And I never took time to actually sit down. As I said to you earlier, I wasn't financially savvy to be able to work out what is it that is going on. But now I have a better understanding that I was living a very chaotic life. And for me, I wasn't even spending extravagantly, apart from just the little things that I was buying, and mostly sending some of my money, which is the black tax, which I've talked about. So I just really plodded on in life and made a lot of mistakes. But what I can advise to somebody who's embarked on this journey, who's mature, who has a plan, I would say to you, be mindful not to get credit cards. Credit card is good because I've been told that, or I understand that it boosts your credit scoring. So getting a credit card is a good thing, but do not use it on things that are not necessary. Just use it here and there and pay it off for smaller purchases that just to boost your credit scoring. But in terms of getting a mortgage or buying a house or even the house that you are going to rent, we'll start with the house that you are going to rent. If you're going to be single or a couple, just be mindful how much rent you're going to be paying if your intention is to buy in the next few years. Or also what I can talk about is if you have a 5-year plan and you've already planned before coming to the UK, then I would say to you that, work towards that plan on arrival. As soon as you arrive, start to execute the plans, start to have a pot aside where you put extra money to be able to then help you to facilitate that plan that you have. If it's a plan of returning back to your native country, Africa, or anywhere where you have come from, then you're putting that money immediately. Because I can tell you, if you don't start as you mean to go along, life happens in this country. There's a system here, or what can I say, there are opportunities to actually spend your money, and buy things because your money can afford you shopping, food, clothing, and then you can get into this bracket of consuming and buying things and shopping. And the UK is one of those countries where you can afford many things, even if you're on a minimum wage. You can afford food on the table. You can afford to buy yourself clothes. Clothes are relatively cheap. And most of these things we can afford. But if you can't find a balance with your spending, you'll end up using up every penny that you earn and buying things that you don't really need, or things that you're just buying for the sake of trying to cheer yourself up because of the nature of the country and the way that it is. One thing that I've learned about the British themselves, or the native being married to one, is that they really know how to look after their money. They really know how to look after every penny. Most people that I have worked with in my past jobs that probably didn't earn a lot of money, they owned properties, but they were very disciplined. Unlike in some parts of the world where payday is a big deal, in this country, I've noticed that payday is just about moving money around to pay bills or to go to the savings. Everything is pretty much planned. The way people buy, the way people shop, is mainly the people with money that can do the random buying that most of us do, because some of us, we do it to be able to numb the pain and the loneliness of being in this country. So be very mindful of that. Even if you're to get a mortgage, just be very mindful that if the bank gives you a certain amount of money to get your mortgage, don't mortgage yourself up to your eyeballs. Think about your long-term plan, the plan that we talked about at the beginning, where you've really clearly defined your plan, or you've written a clear, defined plan on paper, which then states how many years you want to live in this country, or do you want to buy in this country, and what size property are you going to buy? Is that property going to be able to allow you to be able to do projects back in Africa? So getting a property is always a nice investment here, because then your money is somewhere safe. But the size of the property can be a deciding factor as to whether you will be able to be stuck in this country in debt for a very long time. The size of car that you're going to get, if you can get a car on a loan, because anyone with a good credit scoring who's earning money can go to a garage and walk away with a car. The size, the type of car, the running cost of that car that you are going to get can make a difference in whether you'll be able to make it, or you'll be able to tie yourself down now for the next 20 years in this country. Then you may as well forget your dreams and aspirations of moving away. Because if you then put yourself in a situation financially where you are in a tight situation, you find yourself working back to back, which is what some of us have done for years and not even seen anything or yielded the results because of the chaos that was attached to some of us then. But working back to back 7 days a week can have an impact on your health, your physical health, the stress levels. Remember, you're in this country, you're a foreigner, you'll be experiencing a lot of things. You have got no support system in here. You don't have many people that you could talk to. I mean, back in my time when I came, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. So you only connected with those people that were around you at the time. So the stress levels were even higher. The levels of loneliness were even higher. But you put working 7 days a week or 6 days a week to balance the books. The books simply do not balance if you're going to be spending randomly on unnecessary things. You really need clear planning if you are to be able to progress or even build something smaller or bigger back in Africa. And this is the problem that many people encounter when they come into this country, because they get carried away. And I know that stress happens, loneliness happens. I've experienced it. I mean, I tell you, I didn't even think that I will be in this country at this point in my life. I thought by now I would have gone and I thought by now I would be with my elderly or aging parents, but it hasn't happened. I met my husband and I still got some plans, and I'm still making some plans of actually spending my time there. But for me, it's no longer returning, because I've built part of my life here with my husband, and it's going to be somewhat maybe 50-50 depending on how things turn out. But for those people that come already married or with the plans of returning, I tell you, planning, being organized, it's essential. It's so important. And if you're a married couple, you need to be able to establish and agree whether you want to be able to relocate back to Africa or back wherever your native country is, or you want to stay here. Because often when people are not in agreement, again, that can drag time and resources and disagreements, and then you may end up wasting time or investing here in an unreasonable manner, which might not allow you to be able to have the funds to move back to Africa. And mind you, another thing that I can also talk about in this country for families is, when people attempt to work back to back 7 days a week, if you've got children, the children will suffer. And just be careful that you may actually end up losing your kids in this country. Easily done. I'm not saying they'll go anywhere, but you will just lose them to the system or to the ways of life. Life in England or in Western countries, they're very conservative, and children have got a level of freedom that many may not have experienced, especially in African societies where the parent plays a very important role in disciplining. This doesn't happen in this country. So the only way you can make sure that you win your children is by being present, by bonding with them, by being able to interact with them. So if you get yourself into a lot of debt, and you find yourself in a situation where you, both husbands and wife, you have to work to sort of be able to manage your bills, then you may have a problem, because the children grow up too fast. Now we are living in an age of the internet, of social media, so they can really be captured somewhere whilst you're busy trying to fend for them. So be very mindful about that. I'll move on to the next point about loneliness. This country, something that I really didn't prepare for was, as much as I was looking forward to the snow that I saw on the postcards, on the Christmas cards, and the beautiful winter wonderland in this country, I also didn't really realize that, you've got the dark days where at 4 p.m. it's already dark. When the clocks change, you leave the house when it's dark, you come back when it's dark, and you don't see your neighbors, you don't have a sense of community. Why? Because, some of us, we often moved where the jobs are. So you don't tend to build and interact with your neighbors. They don't have a chance to get to know you in some areas. So the loneliness is real, and the struggle remains real. And I think our winters in this country are long-winded. 4 months, I think, of good weather and summer, and then the rest is winter. So you lack the community aspect, and there's that, trying to settle in, the cultural difference. Sometimes you're not accepted, even in workplaces. You find that, you speak a certain way, the things that you say, you're misunderstood. Some people look at you as odd, as weird, because they don't even understand your culture, how you do things, and even the diet that you eat and everything. Some people look at you as if, they're not sure what's going on with this person. I mean, I also remember when I used to commute, and I used to live in Hertfordshire and commute into London for work on the train every day. And one thing that I noticed was that a lot of the British people on the train, they don't talk to people. They don't even look at you. They carry books and everybody's like staring on their book, no smile, nothing. And I would often get into that train and, you look around you to see if you can share a smile with anybody, nobody. And then you're going to a stressful job. And then it's very hard when you come from climates that are warmer and people talk to strangers. You get onto a bus, people sort of exchange light-hearted conversations, and all that. To not have it can really have an impact on your mental health, and not even talking about the missing of the parents back home. And a lot of you, or if you're like me, you've lost loved ones that you hadn't spent time with. You've watched your loved ones pass on from this world, and you haven't had time for closure. You haven't had time to see them. And that laid back approach that you get in an African country, you don't get it in this country. And that can be a shock. When I often saw my friends on a Sunday, visiting their mom, brother, and sister for Sunday dinner. It's a big deal Sunday in this country. It's family time for most families. And when you don't have that, you can really feel isolated. So there are a lot of pros and cons. This country, the way that I can describe it is it's almost like a lovely cage, a velvety cage that gives you all the luxuries, everything you can afford, that money, but your soul can be sucked out whilst you're busy just being able to afford. And one has to make a decision when settling in this country. Do you want to just survive, or do you want to be able to return to a place where you feel like you belong, people understand you, there's a sense of community, and the decision lies with you? But many abort those decisions because they've made the wrong decision at the beginning, as we talked about earlier on in this video, that a lot of people tend not to be able to look after their finances. They get bigger cars, they make big mortgages, and then they end up not being able to return or even have the plans, and then end up just having to spend most of their years in here until they can't work anymore, until they get tired. Then they eventually just give up on the idea of relocating back to their native, and that whole gap, that big hole of having lost loved ones, of having generations not to ever see each other, parents dying, siblings dying whilst we're abroad. I'm telling you, that can have a long-term effect on our mental health in this country. And finally, another point that I just want to bring to many people that are watching this video is, that being abroad doesn't guarantee you and I success. It's about the effort that you put, and everything that you do to prepare when you come in here determines who succeeds and who doesn't. Some people will come within 5 years, they've got it figured out, they can make things work, they can get things to happen. And for some people, it takes a lot longer. So in summary, some of the things that I'm going to talk about: be cautious about debt, be intentional about spending time with your family, look after your mental health, and take time to do all your planning ahead of time so that you can be able to enjoy your life with your family and with your children, which I feel these are some of the most important things that you need to do in this country. If this video has resonated with you, let me know in the comment section, and let me know, where are you at within your journey in this country? Have you just embarked on it? Have you been here for a long time? And what are your plans? Let's share in the comment section your experiences so that we can be able to inspire somebody. Till next time, it's Shelley here. Thank you for tuning in.